It's go big or go home with me with my hobbies. So I'm telling you this, it's embarrassing really. And you lose your train of thought like I have now. Oh yeah, the time warp. So I want to just cover how you get hooked on hobbies with ADHD, or how I get hooked on hobbies. Because I think I'm probably going to keep on saying how you get hooked on hobbies with ADHD. But in actual fact, I'm talking about me and my experience, because I understand that everyone's ADHD is slightly different. But for me, it's as simple as just watching a YouTube video. And I'm going to use the example of this pottery wheel behind, because that was one of my my more recent hobbies, which is being sat there. It's taken a back seat. That's been sat there now unused for probably 6 months. So yeah, the way that I got hooked on pottery was just sitting watching YouTube on a Friday, I believe it was. And all of a sudden on my homepage, I go back to my homepage and there's a video with a nice shiny thumbnail of someone with their hands around some pottery on a pottery wheel. And I'm thinking, oh, that looks interesting. Big mistake. Anyway, I clicked on it, started watching it, and by the end of that Friday evening, I must have watched 10 to 15 videos on pottery. And like I say, it was a Friday. By the end of the weekend, I must have watched 40 or 50 videos on pottery. Now, by this point, by the Sunday night, obviously by no means an expert in pottery. I've never even touched a piece of wet clay, but I've got enough information to know the skills that are required to do pottery. And my curious ADHD mind is desperate to get its hands on some clay and start making pots. And in my mind, at that point, I'm thinking, and this is it's not just on this one, but all hobbies, that I'm thinking that this is me now for the rest of my life. Every day I'm going to be making clay pots. And it's going to be a game changer. I'm going to make a fortune off this. We're going to talk about that as well, the money trap with ADHD. I'm thinking, I'm going to be able to turn this into a business and everything. I'm going to be all over Etsy, selling all my pots. Anyway, by the Monday afternoon, by Monday lunchtime, I've already booked myself onto a pottery course. Just sort of, I don't know, sort of like 5 miles down the road. Place that I've never heard of before. Anyway, there it is. Found it on Google. Booked in £150 for a 6-week course every Friday afternoon, 6 weeks. So I do flexi time at work. So booked off. It was either 5 or 6 weeks. It was. I booked every Friday off, and off I go. Now, by the time I get to week 3, I'm trundling down in my car to the pottery shop to go and get myself a pottery wheel, which is this one. Now, it's not a shit pottery wheel, that. I mean, most people, if they were starting pottery, they'd probably go to one of these courses and then do another course. And then they might just do some clay modelling without a wheel, just coiling as they call it, or slab building. Oh no, I had to be in there. And the thing with me and my ADHD, I can't just have some crap Chinese wheel that most people would get when they were first starting, just to make sure that it was the right thing. Oh no, £1,000. I'm all in or nothing. So yeah, it's go big or go home with me with my hobbies. So I'm telling you this, it's embarrassing really, but I've come to the conclusion now at my age that 56, and now that I understand why I am like I am after my recent diagnosis, I just have to be open about it, and I want to share it with you guys, and I want you to share I want you to share your ADHD with me as well in the comments. Let me know if any of this, what I'm saying in this video, strikes true. And because, like I say, I'm on a journey, and so if I can read what other people are experiencing in relation to what I've talked about, that's going to really help me. And I'm hoping what I'm saying helps you as well, if you're on a journey trying to understand your ADHD, or you have a partner or a friend who's got ADHD and you're just trying to get more information. So I just want to be open and honest. I don't want you going away with some fake news that I'm giving you about ADHD that's stylized. It's not. I mean, look, there's no script here. I'm just talking off the cuff. Might be a mistake. This video might never go on YouTube if it's crap. But anyway, so yeah, so I booked onto my course. I've done 2 weeks of it. I've got the pottery wheel, and by the time I get to week 6 of the course, then it's just starting to wane a little. The dopamine, and we're going to talk about dopamine shortly. I probably should have talked about dopamine at the beginning to give you some understanding of how all this happens, but we'll do this first. So it's just starting to wane a little bit, the hobby. And what normally happens with me, see, I've got one of these lifelong friendships with technology. I mean, that's what I work in, technology. I'm a Linux infrastructure engineer. But I've always worked with IT in different jobs. So as a software developer in IT management, and now I'm in infrastructure. And I absolutely love it. But it's also something that I do in my spare time as well. So it's not like one of my ADHD hobbies, because that comes and goes. It's just always there. I'm not always full on with it, but it's always there to some extent. And what tends to happen is that when I'm in one of these hobbies, like I say, they always turn into something that I can monetize. And so as a hobby starts to wane, in this case after 6 weeks on the pottery, I'm starting to think, right, well, what I need to do to get the pleasure back in this, to get more dopamine, is I need to start selling. I need to start listing, but I need a way to take orders. At this point, I'm not thinking about Etsy. I'm thinking I want my own website. I want, and it's not just any website. I'm not talking just like a brochure website that most people would go for, because it's all about the ADHD and wanting to get that dopamine hit. And with my skills, I've got the ability to put this huge technical, this sort of huge technology stack together. There's no point me, going into the details, because a lot of you just wouldn't be interested and might not understand it. And not that I'd expect you to understand it if it's not something that you're working. But anyway, I just go down a rabbit hole of setting up this whole website and all this pipeline behind there to process the orders, because there's going to be millions of orders for my pots, So, and that's really giving me a buzz again. But as that dopamine increases with the technology that I'm working on, then the feeling of the dopamine hit that I'm getting from the pottery is shrinking more and more in comparison to what I'm now working on. It's almost like a second sub hobby at that point. And then before you know it, it's the pottery. It's gone. And then I'm thinking to myself, actually, I've done so much work on this website now and all the order processing. I can sell this. Oh yeah, I can make a fortune. I'm going to be Bill Gates with this. I mean, Amazon is going to be proud of this. And that's it. That's the cycle. It's just over and over again of my cycle of hobbies. Now, they don't, I say a cycle over and over again. They don't come like pottery, doing it for 6 weeks, and then on 6 weeks, and and sort of day one, I'm on to another hobby. There might be 6 months until the next hobby. But yeah, they are short-lived. I mean, 6 weeks is perhaps one of the shorter ones. Will generally, I'll quite often do them for 2 to 3 months, a hobby. But if we think about a normal person and hobbies, someone just imagine some bloke called Ted who flies remote control aircraft. You know, he might have been flying them since he was a teenager. Now he's in his 40s or 50s, and people define Ted by the fact that he flies remote control aeroplanes. You know, he's that's who he is. That's what defines him, because he's done it all his life. And to me, my feeling of a hobby for a normal person who doesn't have ADHD is that that's what a hobby is. It's something that you've done for a good portion of your life, or you pick it up later in life, but then you're doing it for a long time to come, not just for 6 to 8 weeks. That's not really a hobby, is it? It's just a compulsion. Just follow my notes as well, make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, so we've covered the monetization, and we've covered the hook, that initial hook, just watching the YouTube video. But the time warp as well. Oh yeah, the time warp. So this is where the hyperfocus comes in. So one of the things with ADHD is, you know, most of you guys watching this will know about this, but it's this constant noise in your head. It's not voices, you know, it's not schizophrenia, but it's this constant talking to yourself, talking things over in your head. Just ideas coming into your head, and then you're processing them, and it completely takes over. And that's the reason why people with ADHD struggle in conversations. They struggle to read, because as they're reading, you know, as they get past the first paragraph and they get onto the second, the mind is still processing what was in the first paragraph, plus a dozen other things that they're thinking about that's happened during the day, and you just can't take in what you're reading. And you lose your train of thought, like I have now. Oh yeah, the time warp. So, so when I'm sat at the pottery wheel, I can be sat there, and when I'm doing that hyper focus, and I'm getting so much enjoyment from this, the dopamine is so high that the brain's got no reason to look for any other stimulation to give me to generate dopamine. So the voices just disappear. It's peace and quiet. I just can't explain the pleasure, the relief of that quietness. And I can only imagine that that's what the medication is like. I'm so looking forward to trying it. But anyway, yeah, it's just that constant, it's that peacefulness. And the problem with that is, though, although that might sound like a good thing, I can have 4 or 5 or 6 hours of just sitting there, just ball of clay after ball of clay, doing pots, and time just flies by. And that's obviously time that I'm then not spending with my family. So, you know, my family is doing without me for that period of time. And not that they particularly need me. You know, I've got a grown up son, and my wife, she doesn't have ADHD, but she's similar in terms of, you know, she's just got one lifelong hobby of doing sewing and embroidery, and she's quite happy sat there on her embroidery machine. Or if you're in the US, and I know a lot of you are, then you won't know Coronation Street, but for those in the UK, sitting there watching basically like kitchen sink dramas series, she's quite happy watching those. So anyway, I'm digressing, another ADHD trait. Yeah, we talked about the monetization trap. Just everything turns into, oh, I can make a fortune from this. And then we talked about the waning interest. Oh yeah, and then the spending trap, because the other thing that I noticed when I first start a new hobby, and that dopamine's really high, is that I will go out and, like I say, buy, you know, the pottery wheel, spend a lot of money on it. But then as I find that as I start getting towards the end of a hobby, and that dopamine is starting to lower, my brain is craved, because it's only just recently, it's only just coming down from this long spell of dopamine where that has been the thing that's defined me for the last 6 weeks. And as that starts to lower, it's a real big crash. And so I tend to find that I also spend quite a lot of money on the same hobby at the end of the hobby. And I can only imagine it's because I'm trying to buy dopamine. But to me at that point, and I know it sounds, well, why would you do it? Because you just explained, Simon, why you're doing it. I'm only just starting to find this out now, because your brain takes over with ADHD. There's those all common sense is drowned out by that noise. And like I said at the beginning, there's probably people with different varying amounts of ADHD and who suffer in different ways with it. In fact, I don't like to use the word suffering, but have ADHD and have different variations of ADHD. But yeah, there's that spending trap both at the beginning and at the end, and I'm hoping that that's something now that I've got a much more awareness of my ADHD now, that's something that I can potentially avoid. And then there is the embarrassment, because obviously during this period, the 6 weeks, then I could talk the hind legs off a donkey talking about the hobby that I'm currently doing, and so everyone has to put up with me talking about what I'm doing with my hobby. And obviously people with ADHD are also prone to oversharing as well, and so I'll be talking to my mum, to my wife, to my son, to people at work, telling them all about this hobby I'm doing and how brilliant it is and how it's going to change my life, because I'm just going to be doing this forever now and I'm learning so much. And so obviously each time you see them, they're asking, they start getting really curious and excited with you for this hobby, and so they start asking you about it each time they see you. And obviously then you go to see them one day and they say, Simon, how's the pottery going? And you just want the floor to open up and swallow you, because how can you possibly go from being that into something to just, oh, it's gone, I don't do it anymore. And so you tend to find, well, certainly I do, I tend to make excuses, like because I've been too busy, I've been doing the decorating, or just stuff that I've had to do. There's been some DIY that I've had to do. I've not really had chance, hoping that they're not going to bring it up anymore. And luckily, certainly for my family, they know the signs. They know that my hobbies aren't going to last for very long. So as soon as I start making those sorts of excuses, they make it easier for me. My wife doesn't make it as easy for me. Yeah, in general, and my wife's great, by the way. My wife's absolutely brilliant. But in general, they see what's happening, especially with the excuses, and then they just don't bring it up anymore. So, and then it just starts gathering dust. I mean, what I need to do really is clean it up and get the bloody thing sold, because it's just taking up so much room in this garden room. But then, last thing I just wanted to say is that and I think I touched on this. Well, in fact, not the last thing. There's a couple more things, but at the beginning, I touched on the fact that I've got some, like, what you might call lifelong companions in terms of hobbies. So, and there's probably 3 really. One of them is IT. So, and I say IT, that's a broad brush. It's primarily programming and infrastructure. And so that's been with me since I got my first computer when I was probably about 12. So thanks, Mum. And she got me a Commodore 64, not a VIC-20. Oh no, that's what I thought I was getting actually. And when I woke up on Christmas morning and she got me a Commodore 64, wow. And it literally changed my life. I am the person I am today because of my mum getting me that Commodore 64. Because it got me into IT, and I struggled at school. I wasn't allowed near a computer because my maths wasn't good. So I physically wasn't allowed to go into the computer room. And yet I work for a massive company now, as a senior infrastructure engineer. And it's all sparked from me getting that computer, which, to be honest, I had an interest in it before the computer. I was already buying books. I think I must have seen something at the time. But anyway, I'd bought myself a book when I was younger and I was reading it. And I think that's what my mum knew. There was, I had a lot of interest in it. I didn't understand the book at all, by the way, but I just found some of the general concepts I was reading fascinating. We're talking back there now, sort of like 1980s. Anyway, so software development, that's been a lifelong companion to me. And then the other one is electronics, and not just electronics. I do quite like the plain analog electronics side of things. Resistors, capacitors, that sort of thing when I talk about analog electronics. But it's, as much as anything, it's the digital side of things where I'm able to program the microcontrollers, which I can then put into a robot and then mix that with the analog electronics like the motors and the stepper motors, making robot arms, things like that. That's something that's been with me. I can remember when I was in my 20s, making little robots that just ran on, in actual fact, I think I was so skint at the time, it didn't even run on wheels. It ran on lids off of spray polish, like the caps. I don't think I've got one in here, but you get like a cap you might put on, like say some fly spray, and just put some holes through and use those as wheels. And that's been with me, and it's nowhere near as popular in my head as as programming. It's something that I probably come round to. I'll spend like 2 or 3 months on it every 18 months to 2 years, something like that. And I say a lifelong companion, but the other one, the third one, is 3D printing. But obviously it's not a lifelong companion. I'm 56 and 3D printers haven't been around anywhere near that. But for as long as 3D printers have been out, I've found those absolutely fascinating. And it's not just the 3D printing, it's the CAD work as well. The software for creating the CAD drawings, which then get converted into a file that the 3D printer can print. I like that. Not just for the sake of 3D printing, but because it's just useful for making things around the house. And again, with the ADHD, as soon as I see that there's a problem with like a door handle or something, I think, rather than going to the shop and buying something for like £1 that would do the job perfectly, I have to spend 3 days designing it in the CAD software and then 3D printing a custom part that probably doesn't work as well. Definitely doesn't work anywhere near as good as the £1 from B&Q or Screwfix. But again, that's the ADHD for you. And then, the last thing I want to touch on was, like I say, as I've started to understand my ADHD now, I'm thinking that I've got potentially some strategies for avoiding some hobbies. There's two really. There's one to stop me getting into a hobby in the first place. And that would be the primary one would be when I said on like a Friday I saw that pottery video in the timeline and I clicked on it and watched it. It would be to know beforehand that by clicking on that video it's going to lead to something that becomes out of control. Hopefully when I get the medication for ADHD this isn't going to be a problem, but at the moment, until I do get the medication, I'm just going to avoid clicking on watching anything or being exposed to anything that will generate that addiction inside me. So that's the first strategy. And the second one is just a simple case. Oh, sorry. Alexa, turn off all the lights. Sorry. Okay. And the second one is that when I do get into a hobby, if for some reason the first one hasn't worked, that I'm going to be way more aware of putting spending limits in place, and especially towards the end of a hobby, to realise that what I'm actually doing at the end of the hobby is, like I said, is just trying to buy dopamine, and I need to be open about that with other people around me so that they can help me over that end of a hobby, to just drop it without spending, wasting money on things that I shouldn't be wasting money on. Anyway, I hope this video's been useful for you, just to sort of look into my life, and hopefully it's something similar to what you've experienced, so that you're not thinking that you're alone. That this is a thing. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are like me. You've got ADHD with the hobbies. It's a standing joke, isn't it, with ADHD? But just being able to share my experience, I'm hoping, is helpful to you, and it's really helpful to me to be able to share it with you. And like I've already said in the towards the start of the video, please leave a comment. Not just for YouTube, but I'm genuinely interested. If you've got a comment that is about hobbies, ideally I'd prefer it to be something about hobbies, because what I'll do at some point in the future is I'll collate these comments together, and I'll make a video comparing myself with the comments that I've received. I'll sort of take it in, process it, and try and understand the differences that there are of us people with ADHD, and the way that it impacts hobbies in different people, and try and make a video about that and share what I've learned with you. So anyway, that's it. So thank you very much for listening. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.